I finally did it. After 116 hours, I have finally beaten Baldur's Gate 3. Now, half of me has been thinking, hey, I should take a break and focus on those trivial things I've been sidelining for the past few months, like my research papers and work. The other half of me, on the other hand, has been thinking, oh, but I could start a new playthrough of Act 1 so I can record B-roll for a second Baldur's Gate video. I assume you can guess which half won. Another thing that's often on my mind is GMing. I run a D&D game for friends, and what do you know, it's almost like playing a game based on D&D has inspired me a little bit. And while I'm definitely a bit late to the party, I have a few things that stood out to me that I wanted to talk about, 3 in particular. So, first, inspiration. See, for those who don't know, Baldur's Gate has a game mechanic where, depending on the background you choose for your character, encountering different things or areas or doing particular things grant you inspiration. You can use this inspiration to reroll skill checks that you fail, but you can only ever have 4 inspiration points at a time.
You spotted us. Good. It's like they say, no fun in skewing a pig what doesn't know he's cooked. Hold up, lads. This one might be more than we bargained for.
This system is based on a similar mechanic in D&D. In D&D, inspiration is used in the same way. I mean, technically you're supposed to use your inspiration before you make the roll, not after you fail it, but I always disregard that anyways. The difference between these two systems' versions of inspiration is how you obtain it. This is what 5th edition's rules say on that matter. Your DM can choose to give you inspiration for a variety of reasons. Typically, DMs award it when you play out your personality traits, give in to drawbacks presented by a flaw or a bond, and otherwise portray your character in a compelling way. Your DM will tell you how you can earn inspiration in the game. Also, you can only have like 1 at a time. Huh? That's it? Seriously? I'm sorry, for a game that's relatively rules heavy, why does it just give you this? Ever since 5e was released, people have had issues with how to give out inspiration in an egalitarian way. That doesn't mean they end up rewarding one player over everyone else. And I think Baldur's Gate is onto something. Having triggers for inspiration that are set in stone and based on the characters themselves would take all the weight off the DM and allow for inspiration to become an incentive for players to act in character and not just another burden for the DM. Candela Obscura is another TTRPG system created by Critical Role, and I ended up stealing a mechanic of theirs from my own homebrew inspiration system that I just really liked. See, they have what are called illumination keys, and to explain it briefly, there are 3 actions specific to each subclass that, when enacted in a game by that player, they gain an illumination point. Technically, they don't earn it right away, but I'm not explaining the whole game to you in this video. Now, in Candela Obscura, these points are dedicated to leveling up, but I think this translates really well into an inspiration system. So here it is, all jumbled together. Have you or your players come up with 2 to 3 triggers specific to their character that if they activate them, they gain inspiration. For a bard, a trigger could be delivering a motivational speech, or the rogue might want one of theirs to be create a distraction. The key here is to make these triggers unrelated, or mostly unrelated, to game mechanics, instead focusing on incentivizing roleplay that fits the character the player is trying to play, and creating fun moments that benefit the party as a whole. That is, if roleplay is what you want to incentivize. Your players can use their character's bonds and traits, if they even use them, to help them and/or you come up with these triggers, since they're some of the few aspects of character creation that really helps you cement your character in a role-playing context. The second thing that stood out to me was their use of a narrator and descriptions to set scenes and visualize things that can't be portrayed, well, visually.
Sleep is a hazy oasis on the far side of a desert of worry. You know exactly what this illithid parasite will do to you. Within 7 days, you'll become a mind flayer. But what about the bomb in your chest? Ceramorphosis is likely to destabilize it. What then?
Excuse me, Mr. Dacario.
Now, this might just be me being stupid, but this game genuinely had to remind me that having short but sweet descriptive moments read aloud to you catapults your immersion to the next level. Now, that might be the most obvious sentence I have ever said, but please hear me out. Even though Baldur's Gate is a game, there's still a narrator, and even though it has visuals, you often get narrations describing things best left to the imagination, as well as sensory experiences. Editing Liam here. I know some people's minds are going to go to Shares's Caress, and while it applies, that's not what I'm talking about. I actually mean scenes like this.
Well-chewed spider carcass oozes on the ground. The meat tastes of rot and sour milk. Your stomach lurches, but your loins tingle. Was that arousal?
A lot of the standard 5e modules already have little descriptors written into them, so that's great. But for those of us who run homebrew games, I can't stress enough how prepping some basic descriptive blurbs to read aloud can set the scene so perfectly. This tip is definitely for those of you who like to do a little extra prep, like me, but even for those of you who don't, I still have something for you. Now, players are unpredictable, and so you obviously can't prep for everywhere they'll go, but for the big places they're planning to go to, or where you know they'll end up, writing out a short 100-word blurb, trust me, that sounds way longer than it actually is, about the environment can set the scene way better than saying, oh, you see trees? And there's a guy over there with a blue tunic. There's a river right next to you. XP to level 3 is a great method for making these little blurbs, and this method can even work if you need to improvise or you didn't write them in the first place. And all you have to do to make an incredibly immersive description is list off every sense. Sight, hearing, smell, taste, feel. Now, you can get totally creative with taste and feel, or just omit them entirely if they aren't relevant. But you could describe the chill running up a player's spine as they enter the Lich's lair, or the taste of blood in their mouth after a victory. Your call. My final takeaway, and this one may be a bit controversial, I admit, is that magic items don't need to be scary for a DM, and provided you're not playing a low magic campaign, they are so fun to give out. With that being said, Baldur's Gate definitely goes a bit overkill. The amount of items you get would be hell to keep track of in 5th edition, especially if you're playing with pen and paper. But the whole wait until your party is level 4 or 5 before giving out a magic item just seems ridiculous to me. Like, you can get a magic item within the first hour of the game, depending on how long you take during the prologue. Now, to be fair, this train of thought is also partly due to my love of making custom magic item cards for my players, once again, stemming from my love of prep. But still, even if you don't have cards, finding magic items feels so rewarding for your players. And if you need to make your encounters slightly harder as a result, that's not the end of the world. Also, something to keep in mind, there are a lot of magic items that don't directly affect the power level of your party, at least not within combat. Not to mention the consumable items like potions and scrolls that can only be used once and then are gone for good. Your players will get so excited to find Qual's feather token, and then probably never even use it because they never know when they might need it, even when death is staring them right in the face. What I'm getting at is, you have options. This, of course, all depends on the type of game you're trying to run, but if you aren't going for a gritty, realistic survival game, I really suggest throwing in some extra magic items, even at the lower levels. As long as you aren't a first-time DM, you'll find it's pretty easy to scale your fights to your players, if you even need to. So that's it. Those are my 3 main takeaways from Baldur's Gate 3, aside from all the other ones that people have already talked about at length, and that I would essentially be plagiarizing if I talked about. On a different note, I just hit 1,000 subscribers, and I want to thank all of you who have come along so far. Seeing all the different people come and watch my videos and reading all the comments and what everyone has to say is probably my favorite part of this hobby of mine. It's crazy to think that nearly 100,000 people have watched my stupid little rants. But anyways, thank you all for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and I'll see you in the next one.